Hello and welcome to another episode of A Wealthy Life. My name is Vicky Washay, and today I've got another guest with us. This is Rocky Lalvani. He is from the States in Pennsylvania, just south of New York, if you want to sort of place yourself in the US. Rocky, welcome to A Wealthy Life.
Thank you so much for having me, Vicky. Excited to chat with you today.
Good. So I've invited Rocky on because we connected with one another, and the phrase that he uses is profit first. And there's a little bit of me going, well, yeah, obviously, if you're in business and you're investing, then of course we want to have profit. That's what we're talking about. But when you speak, or when you're going to listen to Rocky now, they've got a spin on it that actually, in a sense, puts profit first in inverted commas. It's a way of thinking about how you're running your business. And I thought that would be really valuable to share with all of you. So that's what we're going to be talking about now. So Rocky is a profit first professional. That's far too many P's going on there. I'm going to let Rocky just introduce himself now and explain a bit of his background. And then we're going to dig into some of this concept that's hopefully going to be inspiring and insightful for you. So Rocky, just give us a bit of your background, would you?
Thank you, Vicky. So excited to be here. So from a background, it's a lot easier to connect dots looking backward than it is to do them forward. As a kid, I was somewhat of a computer geek. I was also very entrepreneurial. You put the two skills together, and one of the first computers I went out and bought was an Apple II. And back then it was 4K in memory, which was wild and crazy. Today, people would laugh at us. But one of the first programs I started playing with was a program called VisiCalc, which is the precursor to Lotus 1-2-3, and now it's Excel. And I just didn't realize the value of spreadsheets back then. I didn't realize how much they were used in business. But just me and the way I think, I do everything on spreadsheets, right? Whether it's my business finances, Thanksgiving dinner, or events, everything gets spreadsheeted out so that I have organizational systems so that I don't have to think. I just go to my spreadsheet. I go, okay, this is the one for this. Just go execute. I just assumed everybody did that. Well, I was wrong. On top of that, as a kid, I always wanted to be wealthy. So I was always interested in investing. How do I make money? How do I build wealth? And how do I do all of that? So always had that entrepreneurial skill. And I realized much later in life that most people aren't taught about money. Most people aren't taught how to build wealth. And I have an MBA. I have a Bachelor of Science in Economics. And I look back, I go, wait, we didn't learn how to build wealth in any of these programs. So school didn't teach it. I was taught money at home. I assume most people were. I found out most people aren't. And so when you're in business, if you don't understand spreadsheets and your numbers and you don't understand money, you're probably going to have a tough time in business. And that's what I do today. I help people not have a tough time in business.
And then that's very much needed at the moment. And I was grinning my head off when you were talking about spreadsheets and loving a spreadsheet and using it for absolutely everything, and then being surprised that nobody else in the world. Honestly, we are of the same gene pool, because that's exactly, I love a spreadsheet. I will use it for absolutely everything. And I normally on the podcast will apologize before using the S word. So the S word is spreadsheets, and M, the maths word, we want to sort of like not scare anybody that's listening. So be prepared, listeners. It's all going to be fine. Strap yourselves in. This is going to be another one of those many podcasts that I keep doing, which will make you come out of this thinking, I need to be nice to spreadsheets. I need to know that spreadsheets are my friends, because that's the way Rocky and I think of them. So let's get into profit first. Do we want to start with the fact that I can see a book over your shoulder there that also says profit first? And I know that that's by an unpronounceable Mike. Unpronounceable. I'm going to leave that to you. What's that book about? And presumably that's sort of like the seed for what the rest of the conversation is going to be.
It is. So Mike Michalowicz is a serial entrepreneur. And he's written a ton of books about business, from the toilet paper entrepreneur to profit first to get different, all these different types of things. he's on a mission to help entrepreneurs get out of poverty. Like, it's like, there's no reason for entrepreneurial poverty. Let's help business owners be successful. The reason he's on that goal is Mike owned a couple of different companies. One of them was a forensic accounting firm, right? Which they basically used to go in and investigate when there were issues. So they actually investigated Enron. And yes, Enron was guilty. He sold that company. He walked away with a large payday, right? Profit. And he thought he was a really smart business guy. He was just lucky. Sometimes we get lucky. He blew all of that money in the next couple of years to the point where they came for the keys to the house and the car, right? So walking away with 7 figures to not having anything. And he's like, how did this happen? How did I get it wrong? And through that, he realized he was given the wrong equation for profit. So I'm assuming that your accountants do the same thing our accountants do in the US. Sales minus expenses equals profit.
Yep.
So where is profit in that equation?
At the end, if you're lucky.
At the end. It's a leftover. It's an afterthought. We didn't go in business to make profit an afterthought. He goes, we need a new formula. So he did sales minus profit equals expenses. You've been told forever, pay yourself first. Well, this is how you pay yourself first. You change the formula. And so the book is taking time-tested principles that apply to personal finance, and he's moved them to business finance in a way that a business owner can easily implement this without spreadsheets and without complications. And they can ensure that they are always putting profit first, that they are getting paid themselves as well as everyone else, and they have money set aside for taxes. So it's a really simple system to implement. The problem is every business is different. I think the hardest part isn't implementing, it's customizing it to whatever your particular business model is and making it work for you. But it's a basic, simple system that's designed to work the way that entrepreneurs work, not the way accountants do, because none of us want to be accountants.
And that's quite interesting that you said that it applies in different ways, because while this podcast is a lot about property, the listeners could be existing business owners that are choosing to invest in property. They could be existing employees that are investing in property. So they can come from a couple of different pathways down the line. Is there going to be a difference to how the formula works for a regular business owner or an employee or a property investor in the sales minus profit equals expenses formula?
The formula is not going to change. The application of the formula is going to change. So let's talk about how this works. I'm not sure how it worked in the UK, but in the United States, in the old days, right, your grandparents, great-grandparents, they got money. And when they got their money, they would separate it and they would give it a purpose. So they would use envelopes, or maybe they use jars or tins. And so they get their cash paycheck and they say, okay, this is for the rent. This is for food. This is for our utilities, or, for whatever it is. And maybe they would say for Christmas or something, they put $1 aside a week, whatever it is. So every dollar had a job and they would put it in that place to do that job. And when the envelope run out, you stop spending on that, right? Then you start to become more resourceful. You go to the back of the cupboard, you figure out how to make things last a little bit longer. You put off a purchase, which in today's economic environment, that's right. We just charge it up and we get in debt, which is a major problem. So that's the underlying principle. What Mike did was say, hey, as a business owner, I can't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in envelopes. So what he did was he adapted this to bank accounts. And so he has 5 basic bank accounts. But again, for your question, other people might use different numbers of bank accounts with different labels. The first account that all the money comes into is called your income account. So Every time you look at your income account, you know how much money came in. So if you had a property and you have 5 rentals, all the money from all the rentals comes into one. You see how much money came in that month. Oh, I'm $1,000 short. One of my renters hasn't paid, right? So then you go investigate. If you're a business owner, you've got a pretty good idea of what comes in every week. Okay, this is what I'm expecting. Did I get a lot more, the exact amount, or less? As a person who's got a job, you know what your paycheck is, right? So, okay, this is what I'm expecting. It came in. Now, on a set percentage basis, we send it off to do its job. Clearly, the first thing we're going to do is put aside profit, right? So whether you're a property owner, business owner, we should put aside profit. If you're a W-2 employee, we put aside, right, savings, pay yourself first. So we're going to take the first cut and we're going to move it aside. And that is to make sure that we actually save or build profit. As a business owner or property owner, you deserve to get paid. So that becomes our payment amount. As an employee, what's left is basically your payment account. And then from there, we then allocate it for purposes. So as a business owner, we're going to put it into an account called, first of all, we also need to put aside for taxes. Employees don't have to worry about that. Everyone else has to put aside for taxes. And then what's left, we put into our operating expense account. And that's the account that pays our expenses. Now, if I'm a property owner, I have to pay my mortgage bill and my tax bill. So that all comes off the top. But most people who own properties, they say, oh, there's going to be a vacancy percentage. How many people do you know who put aside that 5% vacancy factor into cash? Nobody does that. And then when they have a vacancy, they're like, oh my God, I have no money. Well, you knew that was going to happen. Because vacancies happen. Why didn't you put money aside for vacancy? Right? Why didn't you put money aside for a new roof? You knew 25 years ago that you need a new roof. You put a little bit of money aside for a new roof. When it's time for a new roof, it's there. Same thing as a business owner. We put aside our operating expenses. Now we've constrained ourselves to live within our budget. Right? There's something called Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law basically says we will use up all the time and money allocated. So if I allocate $100,000 in 6 months to a project, it will be $100,000 in 6 months. But if I say my budget is $25,000 and I have 6 weeks, we'll figure out how to get it done for $25,000 in 6 weeks. It's literally about constraining ourselves. As humans, we will always spend whatever we're given. It's just human nature. And so what this is basically a way to force you to live in a budget. And if you think about it, if you look next door to you, somebody is probably making more to you. And if you look the other way, somebody's probably making less than you. And they're probably just as happy and content as you. And yet they're able to do it. It's because we all live within our constraints. And all this is a way to constrain ourselves. And it's simple and it's easy to do. And when you automate this, it's kind of like building wealth through automation and compounding. It just happens. And when it's automated, even when life gets busy, it just keeps going on in the background.
I think that's brilliant. And again, very similar to something that I do in a different form. I'll come to that in a minute. So it seems to me like this is the antidote to the modern credit debt building, and not taking us back towards our parents in a bad way, but actually looking at the values that they had that made their lives easier and less stressful. Because I think if you're in I can have anything I want right now, and I'm not going to budget for anything, and I'm not going to prepare for anything, and then shocks happen, like we're going through shocks at the moment, which is, if you like, the afterwave of COVID and everything else that's been going on, and of course we've got a war going on with Russia and all of this stuff. It's having an effect globally, and as individuals, wherever you are in the line, we're having to roll with this. So either your utility bills are more expensive, or your petrol prices, or you're noticing the food. But if you're in a almost like a just in time, I don't care, I've got a credit card, it'll take care of anything, and you've been in that mindset for years, then all of a sudden the interest rates go up and the debt's sitting there, and then you've got to pay for it. So I like it as an antidote. And I think also this idea of making budgeting more palatable, because although you use the word budget and the word constraint, which could be seen as negative words, the bit that we've just got to wind ourselves back to was you put the profit or the savings to one side first. So you took that out. You then only constrained what was left. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to have to, as an individual, you're going to have to sit down either with your wages if you're an employee, or your income and your profit as a business owner, and actually look at what those numbers are for you. But it's not a budget and a constraint in terms of your joy and why you're doing all of this, because you're going to adjust for that by making that the first thing that you pay attention to. And then you're going to work out how you're going to live with the last bit of constraint, if you like, the expenses. Because we should be constraining our expenses in a way that still means that, particularly in the case of property, and I spoke about this a couple of months ago, we still need to maintain those assets. And I love the fact that you went, well, 25 years ago, you knew the roof was going to need repairing. And sort of 10, 15 years ago, say 10 years ago, you knew that the boiler was probably going to fall over. So you can have all of this in here, and the fact that tenants will move out. And that's one of the things that certainly I do with all of my clients, is I get them to have a surplus that sits at the bottom so that they can adjust for this. But the way that you're looking at it in a formula just takes it up a notch. And I thought that's why this conversation would be really valuable. Thank you, Rocky.
And if you look at large property managers, people who do syndications and so forth, where they have investors, they all have reserve funds, because the last thing they want to do is pick up the phone and call an owner and say, hey, capital call, send us money. They're going to get screamed at. You as the small property owner should behave like them and have your own reserves, because you don't want your spouse screaming at you going, what do you mean I can't buy groceries and the kids can't go to camp because you need to put a roof on the house? You knew the roof was bad and you've been ignoring it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I can think of two freehold companies that I work with, the managing agents of some flats. And one is so on it, and we have a reserve sitting in there. So they suddenly decided they were going to put in new electronic gates, and everything was fine, and the money was in the kitty. And I was told, and you got the covering letter, oh, we're going to have electronic gates. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's this going to cost me? And they went, and it can be met from reserves. And I went, result. And yet the other one, ironically, that is being handled by a council, has no reserve. So whenever they want any work done, I'm hit with a massive bill. I mean, like thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds, depending what the work is. And then all of a sudden I've got to stump up the money, which then just pushes down the need for the reserve to me. Whereas if you're handling it, we're not having to pass on this idea of preparing for either foreseen or unforeseen circumstances. So how, when you work with people, do you implement this? Do you just get people to read the book? What's the next step for anybody who's listening who wants to be able to become more profit first focused?
Reading the book is a great eye-opener. And on my podcast, Profit Answer Man, what I do in the first few episodes is I go through every chapter in the book and I give my comments on those chapters. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, go read the book. Go take action, implement. We're done. It's $20 or whatever it costs for the book. And if you can't afford the book, go to the library.
They'll be able to afford the book. So what I'll do is
that.
I'll make sure that we put the link to the book, but also the link to your podcast in the show notes here, so that people can just do that anyway. And what about if they want to, they want more help than that?
So what we find a lot of times is one of two things happen. Either when they sit down and do this, they struggle to figure out how to adapt it to their business, or they're busy doing other stuff and they're like, I just want someone to do this for me. And so those are the people that we work with. And also, just so you know, there's actually profit first books for so many different trades. Like there's profit first real estate, profit first trades, profit first for salons, profit first for like there's a million different profit first versions out there for the individual specifics that are there. What we do though, for us, profit first for us is the first step. It starts the money to go where the money should go. And that's great. But now comes the bigger question. How do we optimize our business? And how do we look at our entire business across a spreadsheet as a math equation, which nobody wants to hear? But here's basically how we do math. The first thing I want to know for a business is what's your lead flow? How many people are hearing about you? Once they call you, how many of those people turn into customers? So what's your close ratio or your conversion ratio? The people who become customers, what's their average sale? How many times do they buy? And now I can start to figure out what my revenue is going to be. And then we start looking at costs. What's my overhead? What's my cost of goods? What's my labor? What's my marketing? What are all those levers? Once we can figure out the math equation for the business, we can start to figure out, hey, did you know with the conversion rate you have, if we put a little bit of thought and effort to this and we double your conversion rate, you can double your sales without working any harder and without spending any more on marketing. That makes sense. Or, hey, I noticed your overhead is way too high. Let's lower your overheads so that we are more efficient and you get to keep more money. So it's literally about helping the business owner figure out how to be more efficient, how to work less. And we're big fans of work less, make more. We are not fans of this grind it out and grow your top line, because for us, top line is vanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line is the sanity, and cash flow is your reality. And that's the problem. People think they can grow their way to success. More often, businesses grow their way to bankruptcy because they don't have the cash flow to keep up with the growth.
Well, but also, if you're growing a business that you haven't sorted out all of the expenses, all you're going to do is stick more customers in, but also you're going to have more expenses, and actually get nowhere. So yeah, you're completely right. It's not about growth. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because this is almost anti the culture of business, which is grow, get bigger, take on debt or whatever you need it, because it's all about the numbers. And as you say, all of that at the top there is vanity. And I suppose in a sense, that's what this podcast is about. It's about, hang on a second, what about enjoying your life? How do you want to live? And a bit like the profit first, how do you want to live? What would a wealthy life be like to you? How much money do you need there? We'll use the word profit. Let's put that money over there. Now, what's left? And how do we need to make that work better? What happens when we stick one more at the top? Does that just get lost on expenses, or does that actually add to the value of your life?
Here's the dirty truth. I've worked with 7-figure business owners that don't make much money. I've worked with 8-figure business owners that don't make much money. So I think the big thing is, we'll be profitable when never comes. Either you're profitable now, or you better have a plan to be very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, because sustaining a business that's not profitable, well, it's just going to drive you insane. As you say, insanity down the end there. Okay, so that's really fascinating. Have you got a tip for the property investors that are listening? So something that they really need to be thinking about. That's interesting. That's gone off, because that's my 3:30 alarm that quite a lot of listeners will know about. So I set an alarm every day for 3:33. Meant to switch it off. So sorry, but it asks me the question, why am I successful? And when it does accidentally go off because I've switched it and not remembered to do it, it's always at a point that's really poignant. And I'm just about to say to you, do you have a tip for property investors, that something that they could be thinking of? And the alarm goes off because listening to what Rocky has to say now is really the nub of everything that I've been trying to explain to you as part of a wealthy life. Spreadsheet, if you get the maths right, if you understand the spreadsheet, if you understand the numbers, it can be, in inverted commas, so easy to make life easy for yourself. And there's very little point doing all of this. Property investing is a risk. Setting up a business is a risk, but usually what you're doing is you're buying in I hope, a low value raw material. You're adding a bit of zhuzh to it and making it a high value product that you can sell, or you're putting in a bit of time and you're adding some of your knowledge in order to make a high value service. When you start investing in property, the first thing you're doing is taking on 75% of your asset as debt that needs to be serviced, hoping that you're going to put a tenant in it that's going to pay you enough money that you cover that and all of the other expenses, and that you walk away with something for your time at the end of it. So you've got to really understand these numbers. So have you got a tip for the investors?
So I think for the investors, the biggest thing that we talk about is creating the reserves. And we've touched on that. But the importance of this is massive. So especially for the new investor, I think the first thing they need to do is pencil out and say to themselves, well, if I buy this property, how much are my mortgage, my taxes, and my insurance? What is the rent? So now I have the rent minus that. That's the extra cash that's there. If there's no extra cash there right now, well, don't buy the property. Okay. Now, out of that extra cash, here's my question. First and foremost, if you have a property manager, is there enough money to pay them? Yes or no? All right. Because if you're not paying them, you're doing your labor for free, most likely. So make sure we calculate that. When you sit down, there's going to be vacancy. There's going to be repairs. There's going to be maintenance. Hopefully you have allocated for that. And again, when you sit down and do the allocation, is there enough money left to begin with to allocate for this? Because if there isn't, your property is going to suck money out of you after you purchase it. Now that you said there is money for this, well, that money needs to get set aside because it's not yours yet. Now, is there any other money left after all of this? That's your profit. That's what you get to take out of the business. I think, I don't know what property owners are like in the UK. I can tell you in the US, they're extremely aggressive. They have the most optimistic forecast in the world, and they always get burned. Okay. I am a property investor. I have flipped properties. I have rentals. I consult to these people who are in this business. We are very pessimistic. If our pessimistic numbers pencil out, we know we're going to hit home runs every day. Okay. But they have to pencil out. We are not emotionally involved in properties. We're emotionally involved in the spreadsheet to say, does it say up front, with things going wrong, that I will be okay? And if it does, then we're going full speed ahead. And if it doesn't, well, then we're going to have to make a lower bid on that property. And we know what our maximum is, because the truth of the matter is the money is made in real estate when you purchase the property, not at some point in the future. And if you don't purchase it right, everything else is screwed.
Fascinating. I'm absolutely all for the spreadsheet up front. And it's one of the things that, again, like you, I've invested, I've done some flipping. For me, when I do consulting with clients, I'm not sending them a photo of the house. I never send them what the house looks like. I send them the spreadsheet first. Does the spreadsheet tell you what you need to know in order for you to think that this deal is worth your risk? You're going to get out of this, X number of pounds on a monthly basis, but you're going to take on X hundreds of pounds worth of debt. Are you happy with that ratio? And, I tend to use net figures. So many investors in the UK, and so many property sources in the UK will actually use figures that are based on the gross number. So your maximum rent coming in for a year versus the house price. I never understand, to my mind, what yield really does for you, because it is so far away from the running reality of a property. Telling me that a property is making 10, 12, I don't know, even 5 or 50% yield is nonsense. It means nothing, because if we looked at two houses like for like, they might be the same price, they might be rented the same, and one needs a load of repairs and one's spick and span and ready to go, and we'll never have another repair for the next 5 years.
Well, and going beyond that, do you have property classes in the UK? Like here, we talk about Class A, Class B, Class C property.
I'm not sure what they would mean to you.
So, in other words, if I were to look at those two properties that you just told me, right? Let's say they, on paper, are equivalent. A Class A property is in an upper scale neighborhood. The clients tend to be, good jobs, so forth. Class B might be a good working class property neighborhood. It's a bit older of a property. It's not very fancy, but it's just, it's your constant bread and butter business, workhorse. Class C property it's in a neighborhood that you're not sure you want to drive in at night. Here's the thing. A Class C property on paper looks wonderful. What they all forget is when the tenant leaves, you got 20,000 pounds of damage.
Yeah.
And it crushes the whole game. So you have to understand that too.
So I don't think we use that same terminology, but we would think that in terms of, and I know you've applied that to the property, but we're applying that to the tenant, because quite frankly, here you could have a nice property that on the outside is in a great street, looks great from the outside. And if you don't manage, or you haven't managed all of your money on the inside, you've let it get tired inside, and then your tenant moves out and you're waiting for new tenants to move in, and you don't get a decent tenant moving in, whether it's the working family or the professional. They don't move in because they don't like it, because you've not taken care of it, and it doesn't feel like a cared for investment.
Right.
And then you can end up with your more challenging tenant in a property that's in a nice area. So I look at it in terms of the tenants. So you've got your professional lets, you've got your standard working class family lets, and I tend to go for that market. I'm looking for the family to move in, to stay, to put the kids into school, and to hopefully stay there 3 to 10 years. Sometimes with the professionals, they can be a bit aspirational and they'll move into rented accommodation, but then what they're wanting to do is move on and buy their own properties. So if you like, we're just hitting, daddy bear, mummy bear, baby bear, we're mummy bear in the middle would be quite nice.
Yeah. And you have to figure out what works for you, what your strategy is, and what part of the market that you want to go after. But it comes back to the bottom line. The reason you didn't take care of the inside is because you had no extra cash, so you couldn't afford to do it, which puts you in a downward spiral. Because
you forgot to put your profit first.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the other allocations. Absolutely. Rocky, this has been fascinating. I think I'd be quite happy to carry on talking to you for hours, but I think we'll probably draw it to a close for the sake of the investors. So look, I've already said that I'm going to put the links to the book. Obviously, basically, guys, you can go onto Amazon and find Profit First by Mike
Michalowicz.
Michalowicz. Have a go at spelling Michalowicz, but I'm sure if you put Profit First in, you'll get Mike and an M in there. I'm also going to put in the link for Rocky's podcast, but also, Rocky, if people actually want to have more of a conversation or find out more about how they can maybe work with you to apply Profit First to their businesses, how can they get hold of you? And I'll make sure that all of the links that you say now we'll put in the notes as well.
So before we do that, can I ask your audience a favor?
Yeah.
Is Vicky bringing you knowledge that's helpful? Do you enjoy the show? Did you say thank you by hitting that little like button wherever you're listening? Do you have a friend who could benefit from listening to this, that you're always trying to tell them to be more profitable and you're banging your head against the wall, well, why not share it with them? Your friend will be thankful, and I know Vicky will be as well. After you've been nice enough to say thank you to Vicky, come check out our website. It is profitcomesfirst.com. And you can find links to the podcast, what we do. And we've got free toolkits and other resources there. We've got programs for business owners from startup all the way through 8 figures. So always happy to help.
Oh, Rocky, double thank you. So thank you very much for sharing the contact details and how people can get in touch with you. And thank you very much for prompting them into the like and the share. That's very grateful. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. So you've been listening to Rocky Lalvani, and I hope that you have had a ton of thoughts around, first of all, liking the spreadsheet and the maths. And Rocky's now saying all the things that I've been saying to you for years. So you need to really start to embrace this. But taking that shift, how can you sort of, in the phrase, pay yourself first? How can we be putting the profit first and then look at the budget being around the expenses rather than constraining ourselves because the expenses are running away? And it is all very doable. And you're going to have loads of links that you can follow up after this. So above all, I hope that this last 40 odd minutes has given some real whoosh to the business side, to the finance side, to the profitability side of your business, whether we're thinking of your business that you're running now or the business that you're working in now, or whether we're thinking about your property business. It applies across the board. Rocky, thank you once again. I really, really appreciate your time all the way from the States. It's been very, very illuminating for me. I love it. And I'm sure that the listeners will be loving it too.
Thank you for having me.
Totally
Enjoyed the
my
conversation.
pleasure. Thank you.